Hi, welcome students. Today's lesson is about water properties and let's start talking about polarity. Water is polar molecule. Why? Because its oxygen atom is more electronegative than hydrogen. We call this electronegativity. What do we mean by electronegative? Electronegative, that means oxygen will pull electrons toward itself, okay, in this direction more than hydrogen. That will make a negative charge appears on the top of oxygen. We call it partially negative, okay, and a slightly positive charge on hydrogen, so we call it partially positive. Therefore it's a polar molecule, like a magnet with two poles. Now, because of these charges, okay, we have a chemical bonds between both molecules, water I mean, and another water. We call it hydrogen bonds. So the hydrogen bonding came because of the force between oxygen from one molecule and hydrogen from another, but it's weak bonding, but still it's a chemical bond. If we look at the chemical bond in the one molecule between oxygen and hydrogen, it's covalent bond, and between hydrogen and oxygen with two different water molecules, we call it hydrogen bonding. Okay, now because of hydrogen bonds that happens between two different water molecules, these molecules will stick together, and this hydrogen bonding makes water molecule unique and special. Let's move and see the properties that came with this type of bonding. And now let's talk about how the hydrogen bonding gives the water unique properties. And one of these properties is the cohesion. What is cohesion? It's the attraction between molecules of the same substance, which cause something, we call it a phenomena, we call it surface tension. What is a surface tension? A surface tension when the water molecules attract each other and form like beads, like droplets, like a sheet over the water, and that lets the insects walk on water like striders, like spiders, as you see in this animated picture. Let's move on. The second property is adhesion, that because of hydrogen bonding between water molecules. What is adhesion? It's the attraction between the water molecule and different substances, like when water stick to glass, like when water stick to paper, to fabric, even to xylem. Of with xylem, as you know, it's the plant vessels. Now, this adhesion with cohesion together, these two properties will make something, we call it capillary action. What is a capillary action? Capillary action when water rises up in a narrow tube, as you see also in this animated picture, okay, the narrowest will take the water the furthest, okay, will take it to the furthest place, okay. That's because what? Cohesion and adhesion at the same time. Cohesion, water attracted to water, adhesion, water attracted to a different substance. And now we'll see another animation for the capillary action. This is the animation that I'm talking about, how the water moves up or rise up inside the xylem of the plant. Xylem is the plant vessels that will take up water from root to leaves by two powers, two forces, two unique properties of water, cohesion and adhesion. Cohesion, water with water; adhesion, water with different surface or substance. Here the surface is the internal surface of xylem or the xylem boundary. Okay? Now, to summarize it for these two properties, cohesion, attraction between molecules of the same substance, adhesion, attraction between water molecules and different substance. Cohesion by itself will give me the phenomena of surface tension when the water form beads and insect can walk on, and adhesion with cohesion will make together the plant taking the water up in a process capillary action. As you see here, water and water cohesion, water with different substance is adhesion. And now let's talk about the types of mixtures. First of all, what is a mixture? A mixture is a combination of two or more substances that are physically combined but not chemically. What does that mean? That means each substance in a mixture keep its own properties. Actually, we have two types of mixtures, the homogeneous and the heterogeneous. See the differences. In homogeneous, the substances particles are equally distributed, but in heterogeneous, it's unevenly distributed. You can distinguish between these substances. Let me show you another clear example. As you see here, the first one, which is homogeneous mixture, the example is when we mix salt with water, it will be evenly distributed and you cannot distinguish between where is the salt and where is the water molecule. This is homogeneous. Moving to heterogeneous, it's like sand and water. Even if you keep mixing them, the sand will settle or will precipitate. So you can distinguish between the sand and water. This is heterogeneous. And we have many examples. Let's move and compare, as you see here, between homogeneous solutions and heterogeneous solutions or mixtures. Now, mixture, homogeneous, uniform composition throughout. Mixtures where components remain distinct and visible. This is in heterogeneous. In homogeneous, cannot be distinguished separately. It will dissolve completely in the solvent, we mean here water, but here components can be seen and physically separated. Examples like the sand and water, like the salad, like a mixed nut. It's easy. It's non-uniform, cloudy, or even layered. The particles will precipitate, like in suspension. Okay? And these another example like a muddy water. Again, going back to homogeneous. It's like salt and water. It looks the same, clear. The solute particles do not settle, we mean do not precipitate. And these includes even gases in water like carbon dioxide in water in fizzy drinks, like alcohol in water we have. So we have many examples. I think this table will help you. And now let's talk about acids and bases. These solutions. Actually, many solutes dissolve in water because of its polarity. What do you mean by polarity? Having charged molecules. Partially positive, partially negative, or fully charged, positive and negative. Substances that release hydrogen ions, or we call them protons, in water, we call them acids. Once hydrogen ions released more and more, we call it acidic solution, and the acidity will increase. Actually, it has a sour taste, but no need to taste. Now, substances that release hydrogen oxide or OH minus ions in water, we call them bases. Now, more hydrogen oxide released, that means we have more basic solution, or the alkalinity will increase. Now, example like sodium hydroxide, when it dissolves in water, it will release sodium and hydroxide. That means this is what? It's basic. And like hydrogen chloride, when it dissolves in water, it will release hydrogen ions. So, they are acid. Let me show you how we can measure the acidity of any solution by pH scale. This scale starting from 0 till 14. 7 is a neutral. From 7 toward 0, acid. From 7 toward 14, alkaline or basic. Once you move toward 0, the acidity will increase. What does that mean? If I compared the number of hydrogen ions at 5 and I come with the number of hydrogen ions at 2, we'll find the concentration of hydrogen ions at 2 is way higher. Acidity increase in this direction. Now let's move to alkaline or basic. If I compared the amount or the number of hydrogen oxide OH minus at 9 with the hydrogen oxide at 13, what we will find that on 13 is more basic than 9. That means more OH minus. This scale, what do we call it? The pH scale. By the way, pH means potential of hydrogen because we are focusing on the concentration of hydrogen ion, H+. And to measure the pH, we use several tools. One of them, and the simplest one, is using litmus paper. As you can see, blue litmus paper turns red in acidic solution, and red litmus paper turns blue in basic solution. Also, we have universal test papers, or we call them pH scale papers. As you see here, just we put it inside the solution, and according to color that we have, we compare it with the scale that we have here. That will give us approximately the right pH. Now, the most accurate one is the pH meter. The pH meter, it's electronic, and it's containing the electrodes with sensor that will measure the exact concentration of hydrogen ion to give you the exact pH number. Okay, last thing I want to talk about it, which is a buffer solution. In a simple way, it's the solution that maintains the homeostasis or resists the change of pH when a small amount of acid added or a small amount of base added to solution to keep the solution stable for chemical reactions. Example, like blood acts as a buffer to keep its pH around 7.4, slightly basic or alkaline. Now, I like this figure, which is talking about certain facts about acid and base. If just we have a look quickly, that acid's pH less than 7, turn litmus paper to red, taste sour, sting or just feel wet, include fruit juice, soda, and coffee with examples. Moving to bases. pH greater than 7, turn litmus paper blue, taste bitter or soapy, feel slippery, include baking soda, ammonia, and soap. Now, this is the last thing we can talk about in relation of water and its solutions. We spoke about water, several water properties and different types of mixtures, acid and bases, and even the pH scale. Thank you so much.